What's one thing your partner doesn't know? Well, story 1. My wife thinks I always fall asleep next to her when we cuddle at night. We go to bed at different times, but I jump in for a few minutes to snuggle before she zonks out. I don't. I fake it. But it makes her super happy, so every time I pretend to drift off and she has to wake me, it makes her laugh every time. This has been going on for 9 years. Story 2. She suffers from depression, and when she hits a slump, she feels like laying in bed and doing nothing, even though 99% of the time, just getting out of bed and doing something, anything, will make a dramatic difference in her day. So usually, when she hits a slump, I'll manufacture some fake emergency that only she can help me solve, like, hey babe, I think one of the cats has a scratch on his face, but he won't hold still for me to look. Of course, the cat is fine, but I tricked her into getting out of bed and doing something, which is always the most challenging part. Story 3. My husband's birthday is Christmas Eve. Unfortunately, his birthday gets forgotten a lot. Almost no one remembered the first year we were married, and although he claimed it didn't bother him, I could see that it did. So now I send out a text first thing on the morning, on Christmas Eve, and all everyone to take a moment to wish him a happy birthday, and explicitly state that no one is to let him know that I've sent out that text. Almost 12 years in, he hasn't found out. Story 4. That I have a folder of photos on my computer called Places I found my wife's shoes that are legitimately filled with thousands of pictures of my wife's shoes that are neither in the closet nor the shoe rack. I started it years ago as a joke and it's gotten out of hand. Story 5. We were dating. She tickled my feet, and I acted as if I wasn't ticklish. 13 years later, she'll pet them and be amazed that I'm not thin-skinned every time it tickles. I have to hide this forever. Story 6. My wife doesn't know her Kindle is connected to my Amazon account, and I can see that many alien sex novels she's read. Story 7. When I started going to AA at lunch at work after a challenging year of trying and failing, sobriety finally stuck. I had been sober a month, and she accused me of being drunk again and that I was sneaking alcohol, and I was hungover and a loser who would never get his shit together. I thought, well, I won't say anything and work on myself until even she notices. So I did. I stayed sober. I got fit. I ran a marathon. I got therapy. I got treatment for what turned out to be adult ADHD that had gone undiagnosed for 51 years. I started antidepressants and generally turned my life around. She never noticed, and I'm regularly accused of being a lousy drunk by her, about every week or so. I'd say it hurts, but I'm in such a better place now that I genuinely don't give a shit what a toxic person like that thinks, which makes her even more damaging. I've stayed married to her for 26 years, but I don't think I'll make it much farther. Story 8. My wife is the biggest softie for animals. We have birds' nests right in a column on our porch. So one day, a baby bird fell out, and she saw it, and ended up dying, but I buried it and told her I saw the mama bird come down and get it. It made her day so much better that I haven't had the heart to tell her it died and probably never will. I also distract her whenever I see roadkill coming up or tell her that it was just a plastic bag or something. Story 9. My wife is prone to nightmares and often whimpers or screams in her sleep when she has one. I can reassure her without waking and get her to feel safe enough that she makes happy little cooing noises while she's still asleep. I've been doing this for her for over 30 years. Story 10. When we watch movies together, we always snack. One of our favorites to munch on during the film is the Sour Punch Bites. She takes all the blue ones because I don't like them, and they're her favorite. She always says how lucky she is that it worked out. The blue ones are also my favorite, but she can have them. Story 11. When we get fast food, she enjoys eating the extra fries that have fallen out of their carriage and into the bag. I don't know why she wants them so much, but whenever there aren't any, I drop a few down when grabbing my fries secretly, and then give her the bag. It's been 8 years. I always hold my fries last, and she's never noticed. Story 12. He doesn't know just how excited I get when he gets home. I love being around him. The dogs can hear the garage door open better than I can, so I use them as a notification that he's here. But he also doesn't know how to shut the fucking kitchen cabinets. The number of times I've also brained myself because I stood up and the corner of the door was right above my head is absurd. Story 13. Very early in the relationship, his monitor broke right on Sunday after the second date. I knew he was an avid gamer, so I quickly bought a 27-inch monitor on eBay and told him I had that lying around. Then, while he was on the way home to me, I power walked through half the town to get it and quickly changed clothes because it was drizzling. He had a low income and no money, and I didn't want him to feel like he was in my debt, so we're over 2 years together now. Story 14. He's out of town. I go entirely feral for the first 1 or 2 days. Candy for breakfast, falling asleep on the couch, beer with dinner on a weekday, clothes on the floor, recycling bag overflowing. Then I shape up. When he comes back, everything's back to normal, but man, does it feel good to be a sloppy pig sometimes. Story 15. My girlfriend struggles with insomnia, but she passes out almost immediately when I talk to her late at night. So whenever I read a book, I read out loud softly under the guise that it helps me focus. It works every time. Story 16. He did not know he was my teenage crush since I was 12, and I wrote many beautiful poems about him. We've been married for 6 years and have a child together, but I don't know if I'll ever have the courage to tell him I have always loved him. Story 17. He knows because I tell him a lot, but I don't think he fully understands how much I love and rely on him. I don't think he could know without being in my head, but I have acute anxiety. I know enough about my concern to know when I'm freaking out over nothing, so I try to keep it mostly contained to my brain and keep the external freakouts to a minimum. His presence keeps me grounded and calm. He's my best friend, and I don't know if I could have accomplished most of what I have without him. Story 18. I rub her back when she's asleep because she makes happy noises, which gives her better dreams. I do also this thing to the dog, however. Story 19. My father-in-law used to give his wife the good part of the bread and eat the end of the loaf himself. It wasn't until several years into the marriage that she snapped at him, asking why he always took the best part for himself, the end of the loaf. I think it's worth letting your partner know you do this, and not just in case they hate the stuff you've been sacrificially giving them. I find it harder for resentment to build when everyone is honest about the small sacrifices they make. Story 20. My father-in-law got a bloody nose at our wedding reception because he thought it would be okay to grind his crotch on and whisper, "I've been dreaming of fucking you all night," to my mom on the dance floor. My mother-in-law saw the whole thing with many others, hence the bloody nose. I'm pretty sure my wife doesn't know. Story 21. When we worked together, someone kept stealing food from my husband's lunchbox. So, he started deliberately packing more food. He assumed the person was stealing food because they were hungry and couldn't afford it. I found out who did it. She hated him and was doing it to try to piss him off. I told her that if she did it again, I would make a big stink of it, but I never told him because I didn't want to shatter his illusion that we were doing a nice thing for someone who needed it. Story 22. My husband borrows my concealer sometimes to cover up acne. The problem is, he has this beautiful olive skin, and I have very fair skin. It didn't match, but he was too embarrassed to buy his concealer, so he insisted on just using whatever I was using. So I bought him his own and put it where he knows to look for mine. It took me a few tries, but I eventually got the right color match. Story 23. My husband's single-parent brother committed suicide, and his daughter wanted to make the urn by hand, so my husband stayed up all night with his niece constructing and wood-burning a beautiful pot. I've never personally experienced such a raw tragedy before. First, the family fell apart, and later, the coke-addicted mother won custody. At the funeral, the director told my husband's stepfather that the urn did not fit all of the ashes and that he still had some left in the back. The stepfather said, "I think it's best we just throw the rest away." Only I overheard that, and at the time, I was too out of it to intervene or say that his mother or brother should have made that decision. So now the daughter and mother fight over the urn, not knowing that half of him was already thrown away without a thought. It's the only major secret I have from my spouse, and I think I'll take it to my grave.